Hi, I'm David Fleming from Disciples Ignited, a ministry that's focused on Jesus, advancing his kingdom and preparing his disciples. Now, during this series, The Holy Spirit in You, we've talked about such things as the character of the Spirit, the Holy Spirit in the life of a disciple, the gifts of the Spirit and the fruits of the Spirit. And this week, we've been talking about how the Holy Spirit leads people. And today we're going to be talking about how the Holy Spirit led Philip, who was an evangelist that was used by God to bring revival to a Samaritan city. The way that the Holy Spirit led Philip is phenomenal. We read all about it in Acts chapter 8. Let's start out by reading Acts chapter 8, verses 5 through 8 from the NIV. Philip went down to a city in Samaria and proclaimed the Messiah there. When the crowds heard Philip and saw the signs he performed, they all paid close attention to what he said. For with shrieks, impure spirits came out of many, and many who were paralyzed or lame were healed. So there was great joy in that city. You know what that sounds like? It sounds like revival had broken out in that city. I mean, people were getting saved. They were getting delivered from demons. They were getting healed. I mean, powerful things were happening in that Samaritan city as the Holy Spirit moved in their midst. But what happened next is mind-boggling. Listen, Acts chapter 8, verses 26 through 29 tells us about it. Now, an angel of the Lord said to Philip, "Go south to the road, the desert road, that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza." So what is the Lord telling him? He's telling him to leave the revival outpouring. I mean, Philip was literally one of the, if not the main leader of this revival outpouring, and God tells him to leave? Well, why? Let's read on. In verse 27, we read, "So he started out, and on his way he met an Ethiopian eunuch, an important official in charge of the treasury of the Kandake," which means Queen of the Ethiopians. This man had gone to Jerusalem to worship, and on his way home was sitting in his chariot reading the book of Isaiah the prophet. The Spirit told Philip, "Go to that chariot and stay near it." Now we have indication right there that the Holy Spirit is speaking to Philip. He's leading Philip. Now Philip has already received a message from an angel of the Lord to leave the revival outpouring and go to the desert, which he did. And then when he got to the desert, then the Holy Spirit specifically tells Philip what to do. Now, there's not a lot of people in the desert for sure, but there was this chariot, and in that chariot was an Ethiopian eunuch that was a high official in the court of the Ethiopian queen. And so the Spirit told Philip, "Go to that chariot and stay near it." Philip did, and he found that the Ethiopian was studying the book of Isaiah, but didn't understand what he was reading. And so Philip had the opportunity to not only minister to the Ethiopian eunuch, but to lead him to the Lord. And then they came up to some water, and he asked the Ethiopian, "Why don't you get baptized?" And so the Ethiopian was baptized. And what happened next is absolutely miraculous, amazing. Let's read about it. Now in Acts chapter 8, verses 36 through 40, we read, "As they traveled along the road, they came to some water, and the eunuch said, 'Look, here's water. What can stand in the way of my being baptized?' And then in verse 38, we read, "And he gave orders to stop the chariot. Then both Philip and the eunuch went down into the water, and Philip baptized him." Now listen carefully to verse 39. "When they came up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord suddenly took Philip away, and the eunuch did not see him again, but went on his way rejoicing. Philip, however, appeared at Azotus and traveled about, preaching the gospel in all the towns until he reached Caesarea." What just happened? Well, let's read that verse 39 in some other translations to see if we can get a better grasp of what has literally taken place. In the NIV, we read, "The Spirit of the Lord suddenly took Philip away, and the eunuch did not see him again." The English Standard Version says, "The Spirit of the Lord carried Philip away, and the eunuch saw him no more." And then the New American Standard Bible 2020 version says, "The Spirit of the Lord snatched Philip away, and the eunuch no longer saw him." Well, it's real clear. The Holy Spirit, after Philip had finished his mission, the Holy Spirit literally physically transported Philip from one physical location to another physical location. Absolutely miraculous. And it's interesting how the Holy Spirit, we've seen the Holy Spirit lead Philip in different ways in this whole scenario. First of all, the Holy Spirit spoke to Philip and told him to go up to a chariot that the Ethiopian eunuch was riding in. But in this instance, after Philip had finished his mission, the Holy Spirit didn't speak to Philip. He just literally physically snatched him up and physically took him to another physical location. Wow. But you know what we learn from this? The Holy Spirit doesn't always lead us in the same way every time. And we need to be open to however the Holy Spirit wants to lead us. But one of the key things that we should learn from this is it was because Philip was obedient in the very first place that he experienced this miraculous transportation of the Holy Spirit. You never know how the Holy Spirit's going to lead you. All you need to do is submit and obey. Now, there's some other examples that we're going to be sharing with you over the next 2 videos on how the Holy Spirit led some other people. So join me tomorrow and we'll see another example.